right, welcome to our Best of series. This is a project where we attempt to go through our favorite channels on YouTube and maybe other platforms as time goes on and talk about some of the best content that some of the content that we like best on their channel. And today we're going to be talking about a channel called Combat Story. So we're sharing the screen here. We're going to open up our history and go over to the channel called Combat Story. This is the intro to their videos.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served Warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. Today we hear the combat story of Dale Conway.
All right, so that's the intro, kind of straight to the point. So it's a channel that started in May of last year, May of 2021. It already has accumulated 2,200,000 views. The About tab has this description for the channel. Sharing veteran stories, interviews with real military veterans about their combat experiences and sacrifices in some of life's most challenging situations. Their insights shed light on how to lead effective teams, survive incredible stress, and prepare for the unknown. Hear from Special Ops, Delta operators, Marine Force Recon, JTACs, Green Berets, gun pilots, PJs, infantrymen, and more, from Vietnam to the Gulf War to Somalia to Iraq to Afghanistan. And it's simple, that's all there is. It says location United States, and there's a link to their website. And I don't think I've ever looked at their website. So it looks like a pretty decent site without any BS. There's the kind of Combat Story logo at the top, which is the Combat Story in the old typewriter font, kind of distressed, like an old typewriter. And then the O in combat, or the A in combat, is a star instead of a A. And then you've got the menu at the top, some dude with a flag over his shoulder, and a bunch of brand new kit on. And then gets right into one of the, I guess, the featured podcast. But wait a minute, this is one of the newer ones, I guess. So one of the newer podcasts, and then not the newest one, but the second to the last, I guess. And then just sequentially the last podcast with a cool thumbnail, like a square thumbnail. So they're putting some time and effort into this one. Ghost is out there. I don't know if Ghost has seen Combat Stories before. So this is their website, and they've only got 32. Just this week was episode 32, I think. So it's not going to be too difficult to go through all of these. So that's their website. Now, if we go to channels, they don't link to any channels. So that's a shame. I don't know if the dude will watch this or not, but I'd recommend linking at least to the channels that you've interviewed, right? Maybe even other channels that are of value. Looks like they used the community tab 4 months ago, but they're dropping cool stuff. Actually, only dropped 2 things, but dropping some like supplemental stuff. Looks like. Then you get the playlist. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 playlists. All right. Air Force, aim high. Only Army vets and their experiences. So hoorah. And then Vietnam, combat stories and experiences from the older generation of warriors who sacrificed so much and came home to an unappreciative country. Afghanistan, right? Iraq, Semper Fi, so there's one just for Marines. Special Ops, that has Rangers, Delta, Green Berets, and MARSOC in it. And then probably JTAC PJs, yeah. And all the insane experiences that come with tier 1, it says. And then gun pilots, and I think that's what this dude is. So well, I know that's what this dude is. So that's cool. He has a cool list of playlists. Again, there's only 31 episodes, so none of the playlists is super long yet. Then we get to his videos, and that's what we're going to sink our teeth into. But let's take a look at his homepage just to see what he's doing with it. And we're still kind of just looking at the page, I guess, the YouTube page. The banner on this one is just a Chinook about to take, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 guys? I don't know how much a Chinook can hold. What are these dudes? I don't know what they are. They don't have any stuff on, so I'm guessing they're not Army. We would have stuff on all over the place, like unit insignias and things, I think. So unless this is something else, this Marines maybe getting on one of their Chinooks. I don't know. Do they run around in Chinooks? Anyway, so it's just a general, like an image of a bunch of dudes about to jump onto a helicopter. And it's not even his kind of helicopter, so it's interesting. I don't know if there's significance to that or not. And then his homepage, though, it has the most recent uploads at the top. Then it's got the playlists, starting with Special Ops, then Gun Pilots, and then Iraq, and that's it. Then you jump over to the video tab, and that's the meat and potatoes. So they're listed chronologically in reverse order. So 32, the most recent podcast episode 32 is at the top. I'll just scroll down a couple of scrolls to the bottom and start taking a look at what we got here. So I have listened to every single one of these. They're awesome. To describe these podcasts in relation to other podcasts would be, I would say, the difference is that these are about an hour and a half. The other ones that I would compare it to is Mic Drop, which I really like. And those are what I listened to first, but I forget how many Mic Drops on, 180 or something. He's got a lot of podcasts, and his podcast can be, a 2-hour podcast is a short podcast on Mic Drop. So 3 to 4 hours easy. Some of them are over 4 hours. Most of them are over 3 hours. So these 1.5 hours are different. And some of the longest ones on the combat stories is Shrek for an hour and a half, for 2.5 hours, which goes by in a minute. And the longest ones it looks like is a 2-hour one, and then a 141, another 2-hour one. So there's a couple of 2 hours, but most of them are like an hour and a half. Some of them are even an hour and 15. So that makes it a more digestible podcast, I guess. It's easier to listen to in one setting or in two settings. Which just is a different experience. He also doesn't dive into, to compare it to Mic Drop, he doesn't dive into like their morning routines or their habits or their diets or, in this case, dogs. He doesn't get into dogs or whatever. But he does he mostly talks about combat experiences, and then he has a couple of specific questions that he asks at the end. Would you do it all again? And what is this last question? Would you do it all again? And now I can't think of the last one. So he has a couple of questions that are consistent, and then most of his questions, though, are just leading questions that let the people, the guests, talk about their experiences. And there's some interesting experiences here. I mentioned it, I think, in this one, but I know I've mentioned it in the lead up to the show on other shows, that one of the other things I like best about Combat Story is that he has interviews with guys that go all the way back to Vietnam. So some stories from Vietnam and earlier things are pretty cool to even hear, but now to hear in the perspective of, or compared with some of the new stuff, is pretty cool. All right, so with that said, it's a neat podcast. It's about 90 minutes long usually, and there's 31 of them. They started 7 months ago, and we'll just kind of open them up here. I think what I'll do, since there's only 31, we'll just talk about each one of them, and I'll just close the tabs to try to do a top 10. So our goal with this podcast with this series, is to introduce some of these new channels, maybe new to you channels. They're not new channels, but channels that we're introducing, which are interesting, and then to give you the top 10 videos from the channel. So if you're interested in checking out the channel, might be some of the most interesting things to sink your teeth into. I can tell you for sure the interviews with Shrek are going to be at the top, because those are just super interesting. These guys clicked, and they just had a lot of fun with the interviews, and a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So we'll start with number 1. I guess we're going to get a lot of ads probably. That's the way this works. So this was Elliot Ackerman, a Marine, 5 tours in Iraq, Purple Heart. So, what am I going to try
Most
to
natural
remember all
sounding
these?
text-to-speech song.
Oh, gotta listen to the commercial. Okay, so this one was his first one, and he didn't have the interview thing going as much as just the phone type of thing. So he had a photo of each of them, and then just a generic background picture, or maybe a picture that he sent them or something. We get the description of it, and then we get what do you call this? The table of contents, or the index, I guess, to the interview. That's pretty cool. Let's see. So, as a Marine, he led a platoon in Fallujah 2 during some of the most brutal fighting in the post 9/11 era. The story will resonate with anyone who fought in urban combat, in particular leadership challenges small unit leaders face, especially newly minted officers. His platoon experience in Fallujah 2 is exactly what you think about when you hear stories of this operation, included losing half of his Marines in less 24 hours after his time in the Marine Corps. Elliott also served as a paramilitary officer in the CIA. After his time in uniform, Elliott became a novelist and a journalist. He has published 5 books, and his fiction essays have appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic, The New Republic, The New York Times Magazine, Esquire, Echo, Tone, and others. He's a contributor to the Daily Beast. His books include Green on Blue, a novel, Dark at the Crossing, Waiting for Eden, Places and Names on War, Revolution, and Returning, Red Dress, and Black and Blue. So I think I do remember this, and if it's the one I remember, yeah, they talk about like having to follow orders as a bunch of Marines and jumping out into not good circumstances. So I don't remember this one enough. I'm going to have to let it go. Plus, it's the first one, so it's probably kind of a warm-up. But I don't remember any of them being bad. So first off, I don't think I'm remembering anything. There wasn't really any that I was like, I'm going to fast forward this one, or I'm not going to listen to the rest of this one. So let's see. This one is another where he wasn't doing the interview style. Later on, he will get to where he does an interview style where he's either with the person. Sometimes he is with the person, but often he's doing this Skype style where they both have the video cameras on and they're looking at each other, and we're seeing both of them look at each other. So I don't know, those are kind of creepy, but whatever. So it's better, I guess, than, I don't really care one way or the other if it's one way or the other though. But anyway, these first ones are again just a photograph of a helicopter, and then just a photograph of each of them, and the interview is just happening audio only.
If you're on a day cycle, like versus night cycle, what's it like in years?
Okay, so this one he's talking to another Apache pilot, and I think there was a lot of insight because these guys are both Apache pilots. I'm trying to remember now. I think the way I listen to them is like a lot of times you find one and then you go back and start with episode 1. So this was probably like the 4th one I've listened to, let's say, and so it's the 2nd one in the series, but I think it's him talking to his friend, and I can't remember if it's a guy he was friends with, or I think it's actually just somebody he didn't know who was in after him, I think. And while they both flew the same plane and in the same areas, there was like a time gap, and some of the interesting part of the conversation was when the guy who's being interviewed would tell the interviewer, the guy from the channel, what it's like, years after he had already served there or whatever. So I'm going to leave that one because that's one of the cool things about Combat Story is that the dude is is an Army aviator, which are better than other aviators, but also combat or a helicopter or an attack helicopter. You never hear about stuff from attack helicopters. So I'm leaving that one in there because there's a lot of insight to the attack helicopter stuff, the Apache stuff. So next up is Marine Canine Handler, nonprofit founder, and Washingtonian of the Year. So this was story number 3. Chris Baity is a former Marine Canine Handler who served multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. During his career in the Marine Corps, he helped pioneer and shape dog handling tactics and training, not just for the Marine, but also joint efforts across the military. As a military working dog handler, he supported ground units throughout combat theaters, including Trojan horse operations with sniper teams and door-to-door house clearings. In one instance, Chris and his dog uncovered a weapons cache in a scene eerily similar to one depicted in the book and movie American Sniper. Chris and his wife Amanda went on to found one of the hugely successful Semper Canine, a nonprofit that rescues dogs from shelters and trains them to be service dogs at no cost for disabled service members. This special initiative has been featured in multiple outlets like People Magazine and the Washington Post. For his work, Chris was named one of the Washingtonians of the Year. And then his thing is sempercanine.org. So I don't know why he doesn't link this as a hyperlink. He's got an awesome index then to all the different parts of their hour and 29-minute or 20-minute video, but then he doesn't hot link over to Semper Canine. So let's just do that. Okay. Yoshida, great conversation. How about that? So now there's just a hot link on there. So basically, this is one of my favorite ones. If it's the one I'm thinking of, there's a dog one in there. That's a sad one to hear. But let's drop a link to the Semper Canine here in the link, because why not? Part of the reason of doing this is to get some cross-linking out there. So far we got 2. I'm already not doing really good. I have to start filtering a lot more of these out. So next up is we get combat story number 4, Jordan Becker, Army Special Forces, 10th Group, Foreign Area Officer. This is the combat story of Jordan Becker, U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, serving as a Foreign Area Officer, an FAO in Paris, France, as a liaison officer to the French Joint Staff. Jordan began his career in the 173rd Airborne. Oops, hold on. Oh, you know what? I'm going to take a second and run a quick commercial. Oops, I'm going to run a quick commercial. I'm going to run a quick commercial. Here we go.
The DC Project, 50 women descending on our nation's capital to put a face on the Second Amendment.
For me, the Second Amendment is about family heritage.
To defend against hate crimes.
My right to protect my family.
Gives me the right to decide when I need protection.
Because you should never be denied a chance to protect yourself and your loved ones.
My firearm levels the playing field against someone trying to hurt me.
It means survival.
My responsibility.
I am my own first responder.
Because some believe no means yes.
It's a peace of mind.
Provide food for my family.
Recreation and sport.
Confidence that I can take care of myself.
My right to life.
It's my liberty.
I refuse to be a victim.
The protection of my children.
Confidence in our nation's present and future.
Legacy.
Legacy.
And legacy.
My birthright as an American.
And mine too.
Right on. So I just uploaded those. Oops, I uploaded those a while back, and I'm going to try to remember to play them a little bit more often. The DC project is an awesome project. We're just taking a second here to plug them. I just put a link in there for the DC project. That's a group of females, one lady from each state that goes to Washington yearly to change the face of gun ownership, to represent the firearms community and become resources for representatives in Congress that are aware and pro-rights. They also have more delegates that meet in each state that go to the state level government and do the same thing. They're taking as many of the delegates as are able, willing, and can afford to Florida, I believe, in October this year. And they're asking for help to get their delegates there for both funding and other support. So feel free to grab that commercial like I did from their website or from their YouTube channel and let people know about their campaign and their project. They're literally changing the face of gun ownership. All right, so back to combat story. We're on number 4, and I was just about to cough here, so I'm going to go back and start from the beginning of this description of the show. This is a combat story of Jordan Becker, U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, serving as a Foreign Area Officer in Paris, France, as a liaison officer to the French Joint Staff. Jordan began his career in the 173rd Airborne Brigade, where he had led an infantry platoon and parachute assault that opened the North Front in the Iraq War in March of 2003, followed by an 11-month deployment in and around Kirkuk. While in the 173rd, Jordan led a rifle platoon, support platoon, and served as an executive officer. Jordan completed the Special Forces Assessment and Selection and the Special Forces Q course, after which he was assigned to the 10th Group. He served in and around Baghdad and targeting current operations officer for Special Operations Task Force Center. Then Command Detachment assigned to advise Iraq's national level Special Operations Force Recon. In 2008, Jordan's team operated in Mali in support of Operation Enduring Freedom Trans-Sahel. As a FAO, Jordan served as a military assistant and speechwriter to NATO's chairman of the military committee and a defense policy advisor to the U.S. permanent representative to NATO, Ambassador Loach. Jordan has written extensively on NATO and transatlantic cooperation, and his works can be found on Google Scholar. Jordan's next assignment will be to take him to West Point to teach the next generation of Army officers. Interesting. So I do not remember this one at all. So, so I guess this one didn't have a good mic because some guy's saying that the audio was bad. I think I do remember the one with the kid in the background or something.
Was the SF pilot team leader looking for nods. And then we got word that there had been these attacks.
So I can't remember that episode.
Yeah, literally every time something.
All right, next up is number 5. This one is a U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant, served 8 combat deployments in post 9/11 as a Special Operations TAC-P, Tactical Air Control, and JTAC. Co-authored the book Hunting the Caliphate, America's War on ISIS and the Dawn of the Strike Cell, first-person account of the war on ISIS, written alongside the former commanding general of Iraq. Embedded with Special Forces teams under Navy SEAL Task Force West, was the tactical lead for a contingent of Special Operations JTACs to first set foot in Iraq to stop ISIS. He's been a lifelong writer, amateur philosopher, and avid student of martial arts. Today he pursues writing and editing and teaches Chinese Kung Fu and Tai Chi. So I think if I remember this one, yeah, this guy was sort of in the right place at the right time, I guess, and attempted to do something, didn't think he was going to be able to, and then ended up right in the middle of what he would ideally have been in, but he could have never he could have never anticipated the route that got him there. And it was a pretty fun conversation, and then of course in other words, how he got to where he was, and then the actual stuff. I don't remember all the stuff about the commanding general of Iraq and stuff, but I can't remember all of them. I'm going to, for now, drop that one. So this one was one of the first of the Vietnam ones, and this guy is a Purple Heart recipient, Vietnam infantryman. Dr. Clyde Horn is infantryman, Purple Heart recipient, and Vietnam vet. He served in the 119th Light Infantry Brigade near Saigon, fighting the Iron Triangle from 67 to 68, and supported the U.S. forces during the Tet. After military, he helped children suffering from trauma as a psychotherapist. Despite this work and attention to other people's trauma, he didn't recognize his own PTSD until 2009. Compelling story of a helping others, getting himself help, and eventually returning to the Vietnam Memorial. Oh yeah, that was pretty interesting. Will ring true for many veterans. Since he has written 2 books, PTSD in Pictures and Words and Veteran Guilt in Pictures and Words, he uses as part of his own treatment. Interesting. Yeah. So this is a tough one to even remember. So this is a good one. This one's definitely staying in the list. And there's a reason why this is a really cool series. The reason I'm doing this one, including it in the series, and this is one of the shows that's a really good one. And again, you get a lot of people that want to talk about the fun stuff or the flashy stuff, and this is beyond that. Okay, next up is the little OH-6 pilot. This was amazing. So this one is episode 7. Eric Brethen, former U.S. Army Chief Warrant Officer, and OH-6. So that's the little, so basically Magnum PI's helicopter, right? Is it CC's? What was the name of the dude? I can't think of his damn name. So this is what's his face's helicopter from Magnum PI, except that when he was actually in Nam flying it around, the Loach, and basically really interesting. Really interesting. In lots of aspects. Let's put it that way. So anyway, Eric Brethen is former U.S. Army Chief Warrant Officer and OH-6, Loach reconnaissance and H-1 Cobra attack helicopter pilot. At just 19 years old, he found himself flying missions in and out of Chu-Chi, just northwest of Saigon, in a hunter-killer team in scenes reminiscent of Apocalypse Now. During his 19 months in Vietnam, from 69 to 70, Eric flew 3,600 hours and was awarded 3 Distinguished Flying Crosses and 3 Bronze Stars, Air Medals with Valor, Army Commendation Medals with Valor, and the South Vietnamese Gallantry Cross. This is one of the ones where you wish there was a longer than an hour and 23-minute video. You learn a lot about the helicopters, just Nam in general. Remember, the Nam is where they figured out that you could fight with a helicopter. In Korea, they just used them as ambulances. So they were fighting with them in Nam and learning how to fight with them, and nobody told them the rules. They were inventing the rules. And this is not necessarily all that, but it's a touch of all of that. And the little Magnum PI helicopter is amazing. So they're fun helicopters. All right, next up is, so that one's definitely staying in the top 10. And now we're up to, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the top 10 already. So I'm not doing very good. All right, we're half an hour in, and we're only up to Combat Story 8, so strap in. It's going to be here for a while because we're not obviously taking forever on this. So Combat Story number 8, Hubert Yoshida, Marine Corps Officer, Vietnam Vet, Operation Utah. So Hubert Yoshida, Vietnam veteran who served as a U.S. Marine Corps platoon commander from 65 to 66 near Chu Lai in the central part of Vietnam with the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. He and his platoon fought in the bloody Operation Utah, a significant battle from March 4th to 7th, 66. He saw over 700 killed in action between the North and South Vietnam forces and Marines. Hubert has a fascinating story. He begins as a child in a Japanese prison camp in the U.S. to leading Marines on the front lines, and then transitioning to an exceptionally successful career to senior executive roles in the private sector. Today, he's writing a book about Operation Utah to tell the story of hundreds of Marines who fought there, and is looking for anyone who might have served in that battle. Yeah, I forgot this one. This is another good one. Really good. And because these guys, some of these guys are writers, it's an efficient hour and 20 minutes. Like, it's not a lot of and ahs. Unfortunately, some of the new guys, or guys who are younger, getting a shit ton of brain injuries, so it's not their fault, but they have trouble remembering stuff and saying stuff good because of their, brains got smashed around a bunch of times and all these concussions, and they didn't really figure that stuff out right away. And it wasn't until just recently that they've kept some kind of score of where your brain's at, So anyway, listening to some of these older guys who've had time to get past all that, or maybe even never had to deal with it, just in a different kind of level. Really efficient, I guess is the way I'm saying it.
I see this guy jump out and I see 3 muzzle flashes, and my mind's like, oh, we're taking fire. And I instinctively reach for my comms to identify the threat. The second round went through the belly of the helicopter and through the fiberglass floor.
All right, I don't know, give stuff away, but another one, this guy's a PJ. So Jimmy Settle, this is number 9 only. Jimmy Settle is a retired Air Force pararescue PJ, credited with saving 38 lives and assisting and saving 28 others in combat, in addition to saving in saves in the Alaskan wilderness. He racked over 270 combat search and rescue hours in Afghanistan, where he earned an Air Medal and with Valor for life-saving heroics and a Purple Heart after being shot in the head and returning to combat 24 hours later. Jimmy catalogs these and other near-death experiences in his book, Never Quit, From Alaska Wilderness Rescues to Afghanistan Firefights, as an elite special ops PJ, where he shares the friendships, hardships, pranks, and even events that changed his life, from being an elite athlete, competing at the Naval Academy, to completing the daunting PJ pipeline, to life-saving ops in the most austere environments. So this one's another tough one to not put in the list. I can't not put some of these in the list, but not only is this one good, but you kind of tell from the beginning of this one, first off, it's 2 hours, so that gives you more time with it. So it's really, really want to put this in the list. Plus, I was going to say, if you just listen to that beginning, this guy's got some enthusiasm and some, like, he's on another level of being positive. Got to put it in the list. It's just one of the reasons this combat story is such a great podcast.
He had a mechanical and electrical kind of a compound machine.
All right, so next up is number 10, an A-10 pilot, so an Air Force pilot. Vince Snapper is a retired Air Force A-10 Thunderbolt Warthog fighter pilot. Over a 20-year career, he flew 300 combat missions and logged 1,300 combat flight hours in the A-10 and MC-12 across 4 deployments to Afghanistan. Vince supported troops in contact at danger close ranges, at times without a wingman, over a decade of evolving combat and technological change. He's the personification of the A-10 pilot and gives an inside look at what combat felt like from the cockpit. That one is also pretty awesome, but here's the thing. I got to sit here listening to A-10s every single day, constantly, all the time. So sorry, A-10s. It's interesting, and I like learning about A-10s, but every one of these is good, and I got to drop something. So I'm dropping the A-10 pilots. All right, man. It is a good one, though. I'm not disregarding it. A-10s fly over my house daily, so that's why it's getting out of there. All right, so next up is episode 11, Tom Satterley, Delta Force operator, entrepreneur, author. I should mention, I'm reading the couple of paragraphs that he puts into the description of each video, and then every single video has an index of timestamps, and I'm not talking like 2 or 3. We're talking for this video, which is a little bit more than the last, but really, not more than the rest of these videos. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, maybe 25 timestamps. So different elements throughout there. 507, the decision during the Army. 1559, influence on Hungarian platoon sergeant. 1831, the decision to become a Green Beret. 2256, finding a way to Delta. 27, right? Like, it goes on, and that way you get right to what you were listening to. If you had to stop this for some reason, this one's an hour and 27 minutes, you could jump right in. If you're doing something like this and trying to show somebody, bam, like this guy puts plays from the CIA, so I guess that's what happens. Maybe it's from being a pilot, but whatever. So what we got is Tom Shetterly is a command sergeant major per night for months at a time. The brutal fighting and up-tempo took a toll on Tom, and he lived and survived with post-traumatic stress for years. After retiring, Tom and his wife Jen created the All Secure Foundation, which assists special operations, active duty, and combat veterans and their families in recovery of PTS through education, awareness, resources for healing, workshop retreats, and PTS resiliency training. His book, All Secure, A Special Operations Soldier's Fight to Secure or Survive on the Battlefield and the Home Front, chronicles his travels and experiences from combat to treatment and provides some insight to the secretive world of Delta Force. So again, this one is an hour and 27. It's pretty good, and it's a tough one, but I have to remove stuff from the top 10. Otherwise, it would be the top 30, and this one I'll remove. It's a good interview, though, and there's a link to the All Secure Foundation. And what's cool about it as well is that it shows that they're not just always talking to pilots, and it's not just always, it's not always Air Force, is what I was going to say. So next up is Vince Shear. This one, that's just 47 seconds. So
I'm at 500 feet.
Next up is Cesar Rico Rodriguez. So this is episode 12. Cesar Rico Rodriguez is an Air Force colonel, former fighter pilot in an elite group among veterans. He's one of 3 pilots with 3 air-to-air shoot-downs since Vietnam. His dogfights and experiences from the cockpit of an F-15 Eagle, taken down MiGs in both Desert Storm and Kosovo, provide a first-hand account of just how challenging air combat can be. In this combat story, Rico describes his journey from a kid in Puerto Rico to the Citadel, to the Air Force, and finally to his current life at Raytheon, continuing to help the Air Force win the next air war. The description of combat begins at the 49-minute mark. So that's interesting. I wonder why he put that in there. So this one is an hour and 33. And again, this one's pretty cool because it's an F-15 pilot. He's got 3 downs or whatever. They're 3 kills since Desert Storm or whatever. But I'm not a pilot, so I'm going to drop that one. Of course, all of these that I'm dropping are still good videos. So next up is in Iraq and Afghanistan. Since leaving the military, he's broken stories on defense and co-founded the website Sobra, wrote 4 military fiction novels and a memoir, and now writes for Connecting Vets and hosts the podcast The Team House. He nearly died in uniform and has been smuggled across international borders, was detained by a foreign intelligence service, met Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and more. Here's where you can find him. So this one is interesting, and the guy's got a lot of stuff to talk about, but I'm not going to put it in my top 10. So go on. The next one is Todd Opalski. We got episode 14. Todd Opalski is a retired Marine, NCO and officer, scout sniper, force recon operator, Delta operator, special operations commander, and entrepreneur. After 26 years in the military, he lived the startup experience in Silicon Valley before standing up Camp Zen Commando, a Costa Rican retreat and oasis to help people of all stripes optimize their lives and be prepared for the uncertainties of tomorrow. If you love the Marine Corps or the Citadel, you'll appreciate this episode. In fact, the Marine Corps might just play this on a loop for potential recruits because Tom makes it hard not to want to sign up. Todd shares lessons that can be applied to young and seasoned officers, new recruits enlisting today, and civilian leaders trying to break through. He has an infectious positivity that makes you envious of his outlook on life. He was truly part of the elite Tier 1 unit, successfully completed Marine Force Recon selection twice, loved Ranger School so much he said he would do it again, crossed into the berm into Iraq, fought in Fallujah 2, and then in the special ops community for years in the post 9/11 era. He's a true professional leader and inspiration. This is another one. Again, like he says, he has an infectious positivity. Again, people that have kind of already achieved what a lot of people consider the ultimate or that usually didn't even break stride once they got there. So this guy's the epitome of that. I'm going to leave it there for now, but I might be willing to drop it because it can stand on its own. It doesn't need to be in the top 10. It's that good.
Do a recce run of these tanks. And I think that this is exactly the sort of thing I teach people never to do. So I am just screaming. I am right below the block.
All right, so I'm trying to remember this one. Sometimes when I hear their voices, it helps me remember the show or like the cadence of it or what. I don't remember this one yet, though. It says episode 15, Dan Two Dogs Hampton, F-16 fighter pilot, DFC ×4. I don't know what that means. So Lieutenant Colonel, retired Dan Two Dogs Hampton was a career fighter pilot who flew F-16s in multiple wars from the Gulf War to Kosovo to Operation Iraqi Freedom over a 20-year career. He's a fighter pilot to the Corps with over 6,000 flight hours who's earned 4 DFCs, Distinguished Flying Crosses, and 8 Air Medals with Valor across 151 combat missions. Holy moly. He's a graduate of the elite U.S. Air Force Fighter Weapons School. I don't know if I'm still connected. My little robot over here is telling me that I'm having connective issues, so appreciate your patience if I'm not connected good here. I don't know if I'm connected. Give a surreal perspective of life inside the cockpit. He describes his experience from a young, unafraid 25-year-old lieutenant flying in Iraq in '91 when he first saw the Elephant, to the mature flight lead, putting his own life on the line decades later, again in Iraq, but against a more advanced enemy. He easily balances the near-death adrenaline rushes that come at Mach speed with the lighthearted post-flight activities we all expect in elite fighter pilot community. Since retiring from service, Dan has written a best-selling memoir, Viper Pilot, and multiple novels and other nonfiction books, including national bestsellers Lord of the Sky and The Mercenary. His most recent book, Operation Vengeance, came out in late 2020. A frequent guest on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC discussing foreign affairs, military aviation, and intelligence issues, he has published in Aviation History, the Journal of Electronic Defense, Air Force Magazine, Vietnam Magazine, and Air Power Magazine, and written several classified tactical works for the U.S. weapons. You can find a okay, so then there's a bunch of points. I don't know if I'm connected. It also keeps dropping the number of people, so I can't tell who's all watching. So this one, I think was it, but I can't really remember it. It says it's only 44 minutes long, so I don't remember it. I'm going to have to drop it because I can't keep all of them.
I got blown into a room. I'm laying on the ground, dazed and confused and believing that I'm dead. And I rallied. In the process of rallying, I go up next to this window that I got blown through. And one round just misses my eye by like 1.5 inches. So I'm
trying to remember this one too. So this says number 16. Tom Shea is a retired Navy SEAL, sniper, and senior chief who served with and led SEALs in multiple combat tours from Kosovo to Iraq to Afghanistan, including brutal fighting in Helmand province, for which he was awarded the Silver Star. During this fighting, not only was he leading other SEALs through some of the most challenging combat engagements of our time, but he also had a fascinating sniper-on-sniper engagement in which he went up against a very accurate and capable foreign fighter sniper. After Afghanistan, Tom oversaw the famed SEAL sniper course. Since leaving the SEALs, Tom and his wife, Stacy, conduct intensive leadership events for Fortune 500 companies. He has written 2 books, including an incredible memoir, Unbreakable, that gives a first-hand account of the life of a SEAL in combat. His books and this interview are chock full of lessons for leaders and soldiers alike. If you enjoyed Todd's Opalski's interview, you're going to love Tom's story in real life. Okay, so yeah, I don't remember that one. So this one, I remember it being good, but I also am trying to rip it, if I remember this one from Mic Drop. So we still got a bunch left. I think I'll leave it here, but it can be dropped if necessary. So this guy's interesting. You never get to really talk to 160 actual pilots. So this one is episode 17. We're about halfway through, 45 minutes in. Looks like this will be a 90-minute show. Greg Gravy Cocker is a legend from the elite 160th Night Stalkers, the Army Special Operations Aviation Regiment, SOAR. He's a longtime Tier 1 gun pilot who flew AH-61 Little Birds, AH-64 Apaches, and AH-1 Cobras in multiple combat theaters, providing direct support for 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, 75th Rangers, and other special operators. Greg logged 7,400 hours in his career, holy moly, including 1,500 hours of combat time across 11 deployments, and was one of the first strike packages that went into Afghanistan and Iraq. Greg reached the pinnacle of the military aviation profession by serving as both a flight lead and instructor pilot in the most coveted and lethal rotary wing aircraft in the U.S. military. He served a combat shoot-down while laying down cover for special operators in Iraq during the first daylight operation for the 160th since Operation Gothic Serpent in '93, which was Black Hawk Down. This interview will resonate with anyone who wonders why Delta, Rangers, SEALs, and other Tier 1 elements love the Night Stalker so much. So the Night Stalkers are the dudes that's their Uber. This episode will also appeal to any fellow aviation nuts out there as we discuss weapons loads, auto rotations, the 3 T's, engagement, and fight profiles, environmental factors, and more. Since leaving the military, Greg has written a memoir with these experiences and more titled Death Waits in the Dark, and has a children's book coming out with his daughter called V is for Veterans. Greg also owns Shield 91. He provides all aspects of firearms training, leadership development, and executive team building, and emergency response operations. All right, so again, big index of all the different parts of the interview. It's an hour and 30 minutes. And again, you don't really you get to talk to once in a while 160th people, but not very often. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have to drop it.
So in the military, I don't.
And I'm going to drop this other one, Tom Shea. Those guys can both. I mean, all these interviews are good, and those can stand on their own. But I already got 9. I'm supposed to keep it to the top 10 here. All right, so this one is episode 18. Dale Comstock is a former Delta Force operator, Green Beret, paramilitary operative, entrepreneur, mercenary, and author who has appeared on primetime television. Dave has fought in almost every major U.S. combat operation since Grenada to Afghanistan, to include being one of the youngest members of the first Special Forces Operation Delta. Dale has been involved in some of America's highest visibility operations, like the hostage rescue of Ambassador Kurt Moose, and dozens of missions in multiple combat theaters that will likely remain in the shadows for years to come. He's written 3 books, including American Badass, and is writing a 4th on his most recent experiences. A successful businessman, Dale started up, operated, and sold 3 security companies since 2001 to the present. The 3rd company, Strategic Outcomes, is still operational in Bali, Indonesia, where he resides half the year and provides explosive detector and patrol canines for the Marriott hotels and other local venues. In September, he was featured on Discovery Channel's One Man Army and was featured on some other show along with Terry Crews. Since that time, Dale has participated in numerous Hollywood productions to include his latest movie, Texas Zombie Wars. So I don't remember this one, but he can stand up on his own. So we'll let that guy go. So next we get John Stryker Meyer, SOG operator and team leader, Green Beret and author. So this one is episode 19. Wait a minute, what was the last one? I thought the last one was episode 19. Anyway, John Tilt Stryker Meyer was a pioneer in the special operations community who served 2 tours as a McPhee SOG operator with the original, what many might call the original Tier 1 unit, and team leader in Vietnam. John led a small covert strike team across the fence on clandestine operations in Laos, Cambodia, and what many may now refer to as the secret war in the Vietnam conflict. John shares what it was like joining this covert world, signing a 20-year secrecy agreement, and how the aircraft that brought him to his first FOB and then loaded a small special ops team that was never heard from again. It was an ominous start, to say the least, in one unbelievable battle. John describes the enemy stacking dead bodies in an effort to get an elevated firing position on John's team. In another, the enemy used a tactic where they get so close to the U.S. position that air crews won't be able to drop napalm. John has 3 books that chronicle both his stories and those of his fellow SOG operators. He's been featured in various interviews, including several with Jocko, and is currently building his own podcast with Jocko to tell stories of other members of the SOG community. Can't wait. John and Jocko are also collaborating on a video game based on the SOG missions. It's amazing that John lived through these experiences he shares with us, and he's a living testament to the courage of so many showed in Vietnam. So yeah, this one is pretty awesome because you don't really get to hear too much about the stuff there. Now, because of this one, there's another one later where I believe it's this series where they'll talk more about what it's like having, or what it was like to do stuff in with those Max Hog units. But this one is good overall. Should I keep it in the top 10? It's awesome, but I'm not putting it in the top 10, only because I'm at 9 already. Barbecue, welcome. All right, so the next one is number 20, Jeff Departe, Tier 1 Canadian. Well, this one's interesting, actually. So Jeff Departe, I don't know his name is right now, right, is a retired Canadian Special Operations Forces JTF-2 sniper and assaulter. For those who aren't familiar, the JTF-2 is Canada's Tier 1 military force. Jeff deployed multiple times, both as an infantryman in the regular Canadian forces and again as a member of the elite JTF-2. After leaving the military, Jeff created a company called the Special Forces Experience, which is a highly tailored process designed for men to have achieved their own version of excellence, but now want to know how far they can really push their limits. Jeff shared that this is such a demanding experience that one of the recent courses didn't successfully graduate any of the candidates. In this episode, we dive into some of Jeff's combat experiences and also spend time hearing Jeff's draw on lessons learned from the Tier 1 military community and all the research that's gone into creating the Special Forces experience surrounding human performance. So this one is interesting, and it's always interesting to hear about Canada's deal, but you know, they're not going to, come on, they got way too much metric up there. Next up is episode 21, Eddie Penny, SEAL, Dev Group, Marine, and entrepreneur. Today we hear an incredible story of an elite Tier 1 operator, Eddie Penny. Eddie was a Marine, Navy SEAL, and part of Navy Special Warfare Dev Group, also known as SEAL Team 6. This is an incredible look inside the mind, perseverance, experience, and journey of those who serve at the very tip of the spear, including the moments that seemingly broke Eddie and made him who he is today. He shares insights that many would not, including the loss and courage of those who were never part of the Tier 1 community. You can only imagine. Since retiring from the military, Eddie found and runs the contingent, whatever I can say, group, which provides risk mitigation services and executive protection to clients. He also created Unafraid Mindset and has an app for the Den, or called The Den, where people can gather and share inspirational stories and seek motivation from others. You'll be excited to learn that Eddie is releasing a book with Keith Wood about Eddie's experiences that's sure to be an incredible read. Eddie is an inspiration in the way he approaches life, the way he recovered from some of the dark places that many of us can relate to, and the way he forms meaningful connections with others. This is one of my favorite interviews, and I hope you enjoy the stories as much as I did. So I'm trying to remember this one. I believe this is one of those where, again, the guy's personality and experience or whatever is a big part of it. And what did I do? Did I just... No, it's the same one. I'm going to not put it in there, though, because I can only pick 10.
Running through a window and knew that he would be missing.
This one's super tough. So this is a tough one. These are 3 dudes that, while serving in Afghanistan, are killed, right? So he's the only, so 2 of the brothers were killed, and then Bo was the only known American service member to be pulled from the battlefield after losing 2 brothers in Afghanistan. And yeah, it's a tough one. They were all doing stuff, and obviously it's something they got to move. He has to go on with, but it's a tough one. We'll go on to. I'm not going to put that one in there because that's a tough one. Obviously, you're going to get some of these that are beyond just palatable, fun topics and stuff. So that's an important one, but I'm not putting it in my top 10. So this one is number 23, Robin Horsfall, former British SAS. So Tier 1 operator, paratrooper, and 2 paras, mercenary entrepreneur and author. During his time in service, he deployed 5 times to Northern Ireland in brutal peacekeeping operations. As part of the most storied and successful hostage rescue operations in the heart of London, and was part of a one-way or suicide mission in the Falklands War. His combat is documented in his first book, Fighting Scared, which he describes his evolution from victim to Tier 1 operator to warrior poet. Robin's lessons can be applied to soldiers, leaders, parents, and children, including how to overcome a difficult childhood of abuse and lack of male role model to become a role model to others. His stories are brutally honest, being bullied for years, and lighthearted, such as SAS training with Delta Force, or how he and the SAS helped Princess Diana with her hair in a way that only Brits can manage. You can find Robin in his books online. So yeah, they're talking about a time when they were getting Princess Diana accustomed to what might happen if the SAS had to come in and throw a bunch of grenades, and they threw a bunch of grenades and lit her hair on fire. And then she had to cut her hair short, and everybody was like, oh, she decided to cut her hair short, and that's a new thing. And it's like, yeah, because these guys caught her hair on fire with a grenade. So this is interesting because this is basically what is it? I can't think of the name of the movie now. I can't think of the name of the movie. This is anyway, not The Final Countdown. It's not that damn movie. Anyway, this is the movie with the SAS, so we gotta leave that.
We are going to rescue 70 American prisoners.
I'll probably take it out though.
From a camp called Sante, 3 miles west of Hanoi. This is something our American prisoners of war have a right.
This is a tough one to not put in the top 10. Some of these I'm not putting in the top 10 are because they can handle not being in the top 10. They can stand on their own. So this is episode 24, Terry Buckler. And let's see what it says. Today we hear the combat story of Terry Buckler, the youngest of 56 Green Berets on one of the most dangerous and daring missions of the U.S. military history, when they went 300 miles behind enemy lines in North Vietnam to rescue American POWs at the Sante POW camp. Terry is part of a rare group known today as the Sante Raiders. The mission does not have the intended outcome, as you hear in the interview, but changes the lives and morale for hundreds of the American POWs for years to come. This is a story of true sacrifice, amazing bravery, and selflessness, and some of the most impressive planning and execution you'll ever hear. I know this sounds like hyperbole, but I promise you it's not. Yeah, that's a sentence right there. The stories you're about to hear from Terry, yeah, something to remember, and some of this stuff is tough. Like the stories you're about to hear from Terry are detailed beautifully in the book, Who Will Go, into the Sante POW camp. Terry wrote this book with Cliff Westbrook, who was also part of the interview, and his father was the air mission commander for one of the aircraft involved in the incredible story. I sincerely hope you'll enjoy this front row seat in the most impressive, selfless, and expertly planned and executed operations in our military's storied history. And then again, a bunch of detailed index to grab stuff. 33 comments. This could be a whole nother series to go in and look at the comments from the different things. Actually, that would be cool to do with people who've gone in and listened to these shows and then chat about them. So, man, talk about awesome. The Sante raid was basically, let's go get some POWs from Vietnam in the war. I think it was later in the war. And then let's just fly planes until they run out of gas, crash into the place, survive the crash, run out and kill people, and then save prisoners. And they did all that, except the prisoners weren't there. They probably made movies, based on it, but basically, it's the real deal. And it's tough to listen to, and it's amazing. So I'm going to not include it, only because it can stand on its own, like I was saying before. But it's super cool. And hearing how people can plan and get ready for and then be ultimately disappointed, it has value. Like, not enough. You got to be able to learn from mistakes. So catastrophic, massive mistakes, right? Massive mistakes can be learned from, or massive things can be learned from it. Is that the way to say it? Is it afternoon already? We're about an hour in. We're at episode 25. There's only 31 episodes, so we're getting there. We're doing okay. Next up, definitely one of the best interviews I've ever heard. Shrek is awesome, and I've heard different interviews with him. People who know him, people who I know who have met him, or taken classes with him and stuff, talk about how cool he is and stuff. And this is definitely an hour and 46 minutes of just two dudes that are having a good time and chatting about some amazing stuff. And somebody who's not, I mean, again, these people that got to Delta didn't get there because they were looking to earn stuff or have like a cool resume. They were just attempting to do what they felt like doing, and they were really good at doing it. And then they were let loose to do it. So they just have a different, their attitude and their mindset is at a whole nother level. So awesome to listen to. Anyway, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, Combat Story 25 is John Shrek McPhee, Delta Force Green Beret Ranger, and SOB Tactical. Today we hear the combat story of Sergeant Major John Shrek McPhee, aka the Sheriff of Baghdad, who spent 20 years in the Army Special Operations community, from Ranger to Group to Delta. He is one of the handful of operators who've served in multiple theaters from Bosnia and South America to Iraq and Afghanistan. John's one of the smaller group operators to successfully execute raids in combat by himself during hundreds of solo operations. After leaving the military, John created SOB Tactical that helps people, law enforcement, and special operators improve shooting skills and security. He hosts a channel called Booze and Views that talks about current events and new whiskey. John brings me to tears with laughter in this episode, which is just a byproduct of John's sense of humor and way of life. I hope that, like me, your jaw hurts from laughing by the end of this interview. Enjoy. Yeah, that's a great summary of it, and again, a lot of fun. This guy's done a lot of interesting stuff and just has a great mindset about it. So,
I'm treating a guy that...
and you don't, I haven't heard an interview that is so fun with him. So he's a nice guy, and other people just ask him dumbass questions or don't give him time to just have fun. Like other people ask him dumbass questions, and then what the hell is this weird shit? And then, clicking on that. Ask him dumb questions and then move on after he has to answer the dumb question or the dumb response, right? Boom. Zero tolerance policy. Next up is 26, Patrick Maltrup. Say his name. Today we hear the combat story of Patrick Maltrup, former Marine, soldier, CIA, and special operator who served as a Navy Special Warfare Combat Crewman, or SWCC. Patrick served 25 years in the military, much of it special operations community. He's one of the very few who've been part of the Marines, the Army National Guard, Navy, and CIA. He spent most of his time with the Marines and the SWCC, where he worked on all kinds of boats from RHIBs to Mark V's. As a side note, I was once picked up on one of these boats, and to this day, the ride remains some of the most fun I've ever had, particularly the times at night. It actually reminded me of flying in a Kiowa at low level with the doors off. That's the little Magnum PI airplane or helicopter. Patrick was also a Navy corpsman, medic, and attached to various units, including Gold Squadron, one of the assault forces, SEAL Team 6, which we hear about in this episode. That's interesting. After leaving the military, Patrick collaborated with Jason Woolley, another former Special Ops warrior, to create Savage Actual, a YouTube channel and brand where Patrick and Jason discuss games, gear, and the military. They're now working on video game themselves and have been sponsored by Craft Brewing Company and more. Hope you enjoy his story as much as I did. It was an interesting one, if I can remember it now after hearing the conversation there. But just, stuff that isn't necessarily my thing.
And I felt this weight. Like I was a big, strong guy, and I felt a weight I couldn't move.
Okay, so this one's interesting. This is one of the interviews where he starts to do interviews with people. Episode 27. So Eric Holland, and this was May 8th. I thought this was around a holiday for some reason. Today we hear the inspirational combat story of Eric Holden, the former Ranger in the 275th Ranger Regiment and 75th, and Green Beret with 2nd Battalion, 10th Group. A unique episode where we filmed in person for a change while Eric and I were in Graham, Texas, courtesy of Greg Cocker, who many will recognize from the podcast, for an aviation hog hunt to benefit veterans and Gold Star families. In this episode, Eric shares what's going through his head when he sustained a life-altering injury on his horse farm in Tennessee and how he persevered through the dark times to reach a level of excellence few will ever see. Eric was awarded USA Shooting Paralympic Athlete of the Year for 2 years in a row and competed in the Olympics as a shooter for the U.S. Holland strives to help newly injured veterans through a program called the CARE Coalition, which supports injured special operations soldiers. I hope you enjoy his inspirational story as much as I did. So, yeah, this one's really interesting. So the dude's in a chair, and it's an interview out at some like yard or place. I don't think it's an airport. It's just some place where this guy's got a helicopter. And they're out shooting shotguns like behind them, so you can barely hear all that. But it's a little distracting because they're outside. This dude, I forget what he was. I guess he's a Green Beret, and he's one of the berets. If I remember right, he was more interested in being a ranger than a beret. But anyhow, he gets through his whole service and gets out, and then he's living his life. And he's mowing the lawn one day, and his tractor flips over and snaps his vertebrae. So he becomes para, just his legs are messed up, and has to deal with that and overcomes it. And he's super positive, and it's interesting for damn sure. But a unique situation where he's not a wounded in combat veteran, but able to then talk to vets in a whole different, wounded vets, I guess, in a whole different way. So really interesting and cool. Then I was listening to this one as I was working on the 2A history project. So for me, hearing some insight onto Paralympics and shooting in the Olympics was all good stuff. That being said, not going into my top 10 because I'm already at top 10. And this was good, but it's not my top 10.
It's a little like playing football. So like when you're in the infantry, you're playing high school football. So you're out there every Friday night, loving the game, it's gritty. But so when I went in the Marine Corps, I had been through those schools.
Oh, I see what's happening. Every time I pause this thing, it goes to a stupid Washington, D.C. National Guard. Why do they try to make me go to the Washington, D.C. National Guard all the time? Every time I'm watching these things, they're trying to make me join the Washington. They're not going to make me a pilot unless they got a way bigger airplane than they ever used to have. Anyway, so I was wondering why I keep seeing these 3 pilots smiling at me all the time, because I didn't remember this dude putting that in his podcast. And now I just figured out YouTube is showing me an advertisement. All right, so we're on combat story number 28. I had jumped ahead because I wanted to see the dude. I couldn't remember his voice. I wasn't placing it. To be honest, this one's not one of my favorite ones if I remember. Let's see. So today we hear another combat story from Elliot Ackerman, decorated Marine infantry officer, special operations operator, CIA paramilitary officer, Silver Star and Purple Heart recipient, and best-selling author. As many will recall, Elliot was our first guest on the combat story long before we ever did video interviews. So I guess I don't recall that because I only went back and watched the video interviews. That interview remains one of my favorites and covers an incredible look inside his role as platoon leader in Fallujah 2 in 2004. True grit, determination it required, and it was a battle that earned him the Silver Star. In the second interview, we pick up where we left off from round 1, as Elliot describes being one of the first members of Marine Special MARSOC in his subsequent deployments with the unit. We also dive into his national best-selling book, Places and Names on War, Revolution, and Returning, where Elliot describes revisiting both in mind and body his combat experiences. It's a fantastic read. In the interview, he shares moments from the book that include returning to the very buildings he occupied in Fallujah years earlier, in another experience, having an unthinkable meal with the former Al-Qaeda leader as they shared their memories on the front lines fighting against each other. He's a special Marine who survived fire deployments and fought at the highest levels. I hope he enjoys his next set of combat experience as much as I did. I don't really remember it. It's not going in my top 10. But, it's a Marine one. Next up is episode 29, Jeff Morris, Infantry Company Commander. I don't know if I remember this. Let's listen to more of it.
Anybody have one? I said, yeah, take mine. And I gave it to him.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is one where the guy whips the grenade. Today we hear a combat story of Jeff Morris, a former Army infantry officer who commanded soldiers in Iraq over 2 brutal deployments, fighting in some of the most well-known and infamous streets of Baghdad. Stay tuned after Jeff's combat story to hear a combat story from one of our listeners. So that's interesting. I forgot that he put that in the beginning like that. Jeff was an infantry platoon leader on Haifa Street downtown Baghdad from 2004 and 5 with the 1st Cavalry's platoon of 34 men were awarded 27 Purple Hearts. He describes a significant battle that he was part of on September 12th and 4, where 2 Silver Stars were awarded, and he received the Bronze Star with the V device. He was then a junior but highly respected infantry company commander in East Baghdad during the surge from 2006 to 7, and again with 1st Cavalry, where he lost 8 men during fighting that saw almost every Bradley and M1 tank assigned to his unit destroyed. Jeff went on to document these experiences in his book, Legion Rising, Surviving Combat, and the Scars It Left Behind. Some internet connection and established the Legion 8 Foundation to honor the lives of 8 men lost under his command. The Legion 8 workout is also a hero workout of the day done at 100 CrossFit gyms around the country. It's previously been featured in other podcasts, including My Talk with Mike Ritland. I hope you enjoyed this look inside the burden of command in Iraq, Jeff's combat story as much as I did. So this is, again, I don't place the guy's, no. Okay, so this one was actually pretty interesting. It's not going to make my top 10, but this guy is interesting, super interesting. I have listened to enough interviews now to know that this guy was involved in some stuff that some people didn't like, and then other people didn't like, and then he didn't like, and he had to still live with it. Holy moly, I don't know all the details, but I can understand that something happened, and he is not liked, and he is not attempting to dismiss anything that happened, but at the same time, he's an officer, and he's taking ownership like an officer has to, and shit sucks sometimes, and this is an example of it. And I can't say that it's not an exemplary, it's like you have to acknowledge it's a good example of a shitty situation. Is that the way to say it? I don't know. It's not in my top 10, but you'd understand it if you've seen all these, I guess. So now this one's not going to go in the top 10, but it could. So this is basically, no, actually, I'm going to leave this one in the top 10. Wait, is that how I do it? I think this is the one where Shrek interviews Ryan. So I'm going to make this one in the top 10 and take the other one with Shrek out of the top 10. So this one is a couple episodes later and a couple episodes ago when these guys, like I say, they seem to dig having this interview thing or whatever. So they're like, hey, let's do it again. Like 5 minutes later, they do it again. Except this time Shrek interviews this dude, which is cool because he's asking him interesting questions, and it's a long one, I think. Yeah, 2.5 hours. So definitely one of my favorite episodes, period, and it's definitely going in the top 10. I haven't even thumbed it up. I didn't even bother. So, yeah, so basically here's what we're here. It's combat story number 30, SOB, John Shrek, McPhee, and Ryan Fugit. I guess that's this dude, Delta, Aviator, CIA. Today we have a unique episode where I, Ryan, share my own combat story as an SOB tactical share my own combat story. I think he means with SOB Tactical founder and retired Delta Force Sergeant Major John Shrek McPhee interviews yours truly. Okay, whatever. Do not be fooled, however. Although John helps me tell my origin story, growing up overseas and going on and being an Apache helicopter pilot and CIA officer, we hear more amazing insight from John's career as well. In this episode, John and I talk about combat, losing friends, and often stories about our experiences as a pilot and Delta operator that many outside the profession have never heard, such as flying the bag and the Mr. Goodbar test. John even takes a moment to put a sweater on that used to belong to Saddam Hussein. I hope you enjoyed this wide-ranging, real, and whiskey-filled interview as much as we did. Yeah, this is awesome. So it's 2.5 hours of these guys just having fun and then talking about all kinds of cool stuff. He doesn't really talk about being in CIA, but he talks about a lot of other stuff, which is cool.
I'm Ryan Fugit, and I interview veterans about their combat story.
Oh, this is just an 8-minute introduction on Memorial Day, which was pretty good. All right, so next we get episode 31. This is the second to the last one. This one was just the last one. No, the second to the last one I listened to. So this one is episode 31, Robert Keller. Story of Robert Keller, a retired Special Missions Unit or Delta Force operator who spent his entire military career in the Special Operations community. Bob began his career as an Army Ranger, Special Forces Green Beret, before transitioning to the unit. Bob spent several years as a professional golfer before finding his calling as a soldier. As an operator, he was in more than 400 engagements in 1,000 missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other undisclosed locations. After retiring, Bob founded Gambit Resolutions, a tactical and practical shooting program that uses the Ready Up training methodology to help students survive any situation. He also oversees a charity that provides elite shooting courses to police for free. In this episode, Bob provides fascinating insight to the confidence, training, and experiences of a Tier 1 operator. Hope you enjoy this combat story as much as I did. Man, this one's got to be in the top 10. I mean, it's in a different way than talking to Shrek, where, you know, he's a Delta dude. There's a lot of these guys who are Delta dudes. This guy puts being a Delta dude in like a whole different set. So a whole different way of thinking. This one's definitely a good one. Probably going to be in my top 5 for sure.
And there's this weird.
All right, and then now we're on number 32, the last episode that just came out, the July 3rd. So the most recent one, and this one is Yanal Yogi Dorelis. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Episode 32. Today we hear the combat story of Yogi Dorelis, a retired longtime helicopter pilot who served in the Marine Corps, Navy, Army, and Air Force. How cool is that? While in uniform, Yogi flew a variety of aircraft and mission profiles, but spent a considerable amount of time flying combat search and rescue for the Air Force in the HH-60, including the early war in Afghanistan. In fact, during the initial fighting, Yogi earned a Distinguished Flying Cross with a V device for his life-saving efforts in Operation Anaconda, a mission that's near and dear to my heart, because I later went on to serve with several of the Apache pilots who were there at the time. Beyond earning the coveted Distinguished Flying Cross, Yogi has also accumulated 5,500 hours of flight time, approximately 500 of that in combat. He's credited with saving 70-plus military lives and approximately 300 more in his civilian flight career as part of an EMS crew, which he does to this day. It was a blast to sit down with another aviator in CSAR, one at that, where it remains clear that no matter what airframe you flew, all pilots experience similar mishaps, near-death experiences, laughs, and red tape along the way. I hope you enjoy this combat story as much as I did. Yeah, this one was really cool. So this dude started off in the Marines, and you know he's a Marine, and then goes to Marine Aviation, and they go, oh well, you know what? We don't need the Marine aviators. And then he's like, dang it! So he's about to just be a regular Marine, and then the Navy comes over and he's like, hey, you guys already uptrained all these guys. Can we just have them? And then they go, hey, if you want to be a Navy, you can go to the Navy. So he's like, yeah, I'll go to the Navy. He goes to the Navy, goes to Navy training, and I think he said, if I remember right, he goes to Navy training, Navy aviator training, like right at Top Gun. So he's coming out of his Navy aviator training with his Top Gun uniform on, right as Top Gun's coming out in the theaters. Then he goes around being a Navy aviator for a long time, and then talks about why they're dicks and stuff, and then gets out, and then goes back in for 9/11 or something, and that's when he has to go Army, and then once he's in the Army, he goes Air Force, I think. I forget now. But yeah, something like that. So he's all over he goes Army to get back into flying because they wouldn't take him back into the Navy, and then flipped over to Air Force to be pararescue or whatever they call CSAT or something, CSAR. So yeah, super interesting, insightful. Everything about it was good, except it's too much helicopter stuff, so it's not getting in my top 10. Could easily be in the top 10, though. It's not like any of these are bad. All right, so there's a couple of the things that we've talked about. Now let's see how many I got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's not too bad. I only have to get rid of one. We're at an hour and 20 minutes. I figured it would be about an hour and a half. So now all I got to do is get rid of one of these. Oh, it's this guy. All right, so I knew I was going to get rid of one. That was easy. All right, so now if I was going to put them in order, I got to get past all the commercials. Well, I don't know if I can put them all in order, but I can definitely say this one with Shrek is number one, probably. This guy, it's like 2 or 3. This guy, 2 maybe. I'm trying to remember. Oh man, this one is good too. This guy's good. Well, I'm not going to be able to put the rest of them in order. I'm definitely going to say listen to the Shrek one if you dig it, then try digging into some of these others. So that's what we're trying to do on this, is spend an hour and a half talking about other channels and spend that time figuring out what's so good about their channel and putting some of those things in order. So what I'll do is in the description of this video that you're watching, I will put these top 3 and then actually the top 10 in the list, and then you can watch them, or you just go over and watch them yourself by watching that channel over there. So I missed this last week. I planned on doing Gun Freedom Radio last week because it was Every Second Matters, right? That would have worked out really good. But I screwed up. I didn't have enough time, so we rescheduled them down the road. Next week, what do we have next week? We have, how do I get there? Oh, you know what? I could probably just go to YouTube. If I go to YouTube, and then I look at my upcoming live stuff. Upcoming live streams. The Best of the DC Project is next. So next week we'll do the Best of the DC Project. We did a commercial for them. We'll do another one before we leave today. And next week on Friday morning, we'll do the Best of the DC Project. Week after that, we'll be doing the Best of the 2A Cops, a really cool channel that it's a bunch of retired cops. They talk about 2A, amazingly. Then you get the Best of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Best of Gun Freedom Radio is after that. If everything's still here, we'll have Best of the Gun Guys by Wilson Combat after that. If you've got suggestions for other channels that we should focus on, let me know. I don't mind taking a suggestion or two. But our goal here is to do a deep dive on some of the best content out there. And if you listen to this, hopefully it's in a giant index of what you might want to go dig into over there. Or you could just not have wasted your time. Here, just fast forward to the end of this video and listen to this advice. Don't listen to the last hour and a half, and instead just go watch Combat Story, and you'll have a lot of fun. All right, well, with that, I guess I should also mention just at the end, thanks to the people who are helping us with our battle against taxes and bills. We do have that campaign going on, so we have a store. It's called Gear Websites, and put a link in there. So thanks to the people that want to support what we're doing with purchases from the store. Aside from that, as I mentioned, we'll be back next week with another in these series focusing on other channels. We focus on 2A every Friday evening. We look back at the week in 2A, so we'll be doing that this evening. We'll also be we'll let people pick their free patches. We purchased stuff today or this week at the store. And then we have some other series such as the museum tours, the gun calendars, the daily updates, and our firearms history project. Stay tuned for that and more. Till next time. Oh wait, we're going to show a commercial or two here. So first we'll have a quick commercial for the DC Project.
The DC Project, 50 women descending on our nation's capital to put a face on the Second Amendment.
For me, the Second Amendment is about family heritage.
To defend against hate crimes.
My right to protect my family.
Gives me the right to decide when I need protection.
Because you should never be denied a chance to protect yourself and your loved ones.
My firearm levels the playing field against someone trying to hurt me.
It means survival.
My responsibility.
I am my own first responder.
Because some believe no means yes.
It's a peace of mind.
Provide food for my family.
Recreation and sport.
Confidence that I can take care of myself.
My right to life.
It's my liberty.
I refuse to be a victim.
The protection of my children.
Confidence in our nation's present and future.
Legacy.
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 My birthright as an American.
And mine too.
So DC Project is working on getting their delegates to a national training opportunity in October. So if you want to support ladies from your state or from another state, you can head over to their website, click on the donate tab or button, whatever you want to call that drop down, put in however much you want. That didn't work. So put in as much as you want for a donation, and it's all going to the cause of getting females to their training, I guess, seminar, I don't know what to call it, project, training event in Florida in October. So we'll leave you that link, or I guess I could just link straight to it. That link may change. It's easier to just go to their main website and look for the link. But we'll also mention G23 does a live chat each Saturday. Yeah, I didn't make a very long commercial for him yet, but that was my first one. So if you go to his channel, that's this one right here. I'm going to keep flipping back and forth. You go check him out. And then if you go to this guy, oh, I see, it stops the music as soon as I click the thing, I guess. So anyway, Guns and Barbecue also does some different live conversations on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on Saturdays as well. And since I just made those new little commercials, I figured I'd use them. So, oh, you know what else I can do? I can go in here and say this project, as well as many others, are made possible by our Patreons. So I will attempt. Let's see if I stop screen sharing. Is that a little easier to see? We'll say thanks to our Patreons, and we've got a couple of different levels of Patreons, and we've had people that have supported us for a long time, and then people that support us for, temporarily for occasions and for periodically. We appreciate all of it because it all helps us pay the bills. So with that, thanks for sticking with us through one of these live events. This is obviously way too long to try to film it as a regular video. So we do them as live, and it allows me to play with these little commercials and add-ons and stuff. So with that, thanks for watching. We'll be back.